Hello, Earth. We have a terrible decision to make. It's an uncertain decision, and we don't have a lot of time.
Stop mocking me!
Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 75th, I don't know what sound that was that came out of my mouth, installment of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on 8 October 2014, and featuring Kill the Moon, written by Peter Harness. As always, you can find our playlists on youtube.com/maninblackreviews, and you can follow, like, comment, subscribe, love, and tweet us on Facebook at Unearthly Podcast, Twitter at Unearthly Pod, and Twitch at MadMat2185. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
And Aaron Romeo Moonberg.
Hello.
On to our news, mostly from DoctorWhoNews.net. We start off with some news on the Christmas special.
And by the way, DoctorWhoNews.net, fail!
Fail at that title.
Fail on the title. You may call it Season 34, or you can call it Series 8. However, Series 34 will not occur for another 20-some years.
Yeah, when I first saw that headline, I almost scrolled past it thinking they were talking about a different show, until I saw 2014 Christmas episode and backed up. But yes, the news is that Paul Wilmshurst, who is directing the special, tweeted on October 3, or 3 October if you prefer, that they just finished filming, and Nick Frost also tweeted that they finished filming for the Christmas special, I guess, on that day.
Is that the Nick Frost?
Yes.
Wow.
Who's Nick Frost?
He works a lot with David Lynch.
Oh.
It used to, you remember the show Twin Peaks?
I have heard of it, I've not actually seen it.
That was a collaboration of Lynch and Frost.
Ah.
Wait, Nick Frost is the one that works with Simon Pegg.
Oh, okay. Wrong Frost, then.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this was a news topic a couple weeks ago, so yeah.
Excuse me, there's some actors I just don't remember. It was okay. I was thinking of Mark Frost. So
Mark Frost,
Gotcha.
yeah, M-N.
okay, so that makes a lot weirder. Although the concept of a David Lynch style Doctor Who episode is actually kind of intriguing.
Yes, it is. I
Interesting.
kind of wish that would have happened now.
It'd be very,
Curses.
very, very surreal.
I love Dune. Should really see Eraserhead one of these days. Anywho.
Okay, so Nick, it'll be more lighthearted and funny.
Possibly.
So
It might not be
that's
stupid
pretty much
funny.
news on the Christmas special that's finished filming. There's really no new tidbits there, although I can imagine there'll be leaked photographs over the next few days, because that's the way things work.
Yep.
Next bit, we've got, I believe this is the transmission time for Flatline. I didn't look closely at this one,
Yes,
but I'm
it
going to
is.
guess 8:30. 8:25.
8:25, it went back up again.
We're reclaiming time. I guess it seems to be an ongoing battle between Strictly Come Dancing and Doctor Who for its minutes.
Now I want to see their title cards duel to the death.
And the synopsis for Flatline is: separated from the Doctor, Clara discovers a new menace from another dimension. but how do you hide when even the walls are no protection? With people to save and the Doctor trapped, Clara comes up against an enemy that exists beyond human perception. So some are speculating that this is the season's Dr. Light episode, and I can kind of see why based on that.
Yeah, it sounds like it might have kind of a Blink kind of bit to it, where the Doctor is stuck somewhere. The thing is, where it was before, the Doctor stuck with a companion. One sounds like the Doctor is stuck separate from Clara.
Which
So
might be
the-
interesting.
Stuck with Courtney.
Which is kind of what they've been. I mean, after Blink, I think all of the Dr. Light episodes were either Companion Light or Dr. Light, and not both at the same time.
Kind of.
I'm trying to think if there was anything where it was light on both of them after Blink.
That
I'm
I'm
not
aware
thinking of any.
No.
Maybe it's going to be a Courtney heavy episode where. Yeah.
Okay, what other episodes would be Dr. Light episodes?
What's it called? The Girl Who Waited is considered Dr. Light. Turn Left. I think those are the only ones since that time.
Okay,
Dr. Light, yes.
turn left, I can see, but really, I don't know if it was deliberately meant to be Dr. Light or if it was just the plot. Well, the whole plot revolved around what would happen if the Doctor wasn't there.
Well, I know in that Midnight was Companion Light, and Turn Left was Doctor Who Light. Was Dr. Light.
Okay. Is there any other Companion Light episodes? And the Snowman doesn't count?
Trying to think. I know there's a couple.
Companion Light episodes.
I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. I know there's a couple of them. The couple of them where the Doctor pretends to be a human in the apartment.
Oh, yes,
That's
like the
two of those.
Lodger.
Like the Lodger, yeah.
And sequel to the Lodger.
Oh yeah. The Lodger and Closing Time were both Companion Light.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, you do like many people and consider what's his face to be a quasi companion.
Yeah,
He's
but
not.
It's in terms of filming, he still wouldn't be, because yes, he filmed, but if he filmed to give Karen Gillan time to film another episode, it still counts as Companion Light.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you consider him a companion, which is a very questionable topic anyway. He's a companion in the same way that Benton is a companion.
Pretty much.
Okay. So, and we don't know if this is just going to be Clara or if we are going to see the Doctor trapped on the other end of it.
Right.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Yep. And considering that by the synopsis it starts like Clara's separated from the Doctor, will that happen in the episode before this or not? We'll have to wait and find out.
Right. Our next bit is we've got some photos from Mummy on the Orient Express. Really, the only thing that comes across to me looking at them is it kind of reminds me of Midnight.
A little bit. That was the feeling I was getting from this trailer too. Was something similar to Midnight.
Between the synopsis and the photos. And it might just be that they don't want to share a lot of visuals of the Mummy before the actual episode.
Midnight
it was in the
means
trailer.
Voyage of the Damned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what hit it. That's what hit it to me, was that it was very Voyage of the Damned.
Also, if it were a Matt Smith episode, he would be shouting, "There's a mummy on the Orient Express!"
Now,
I'm hoping Capaldi doesn't stand for that.
if you can remind my memory, wasn't there a phone call Matt Smith got about a problem on the Orient Express?
I'm not sure, but I thought that ended up becoming the. Oh no, yeah. I thought that ended up in some way being tied into the Star Trek crossover, the comic.
Couldn't tell you.
I might be wrong though, because I didn't follow that closely.
Well, it's something I'm going to have to look up for when we review that episode in a week.
Could not tell you.
So it might have me scouring Netflix.
Next.
A king or queen called the... Oh, wait, here we go. At an unknown time, an Underground Express was in space having trouble with an Egyptian goddess who had escaped from the 7th obelisk. A king or queen called the 11th Doctor to come and help. So that kind of sounds like it could be this episode. So maybe he's returning that phone call really late.
You had to look it up now, didn't you, Bill?
I looked it up while you were talking about it.
You couldn't just hold it for a week.
No sense asking and not finding the answer, right? Our next, we've got some viewing figures from Kill the Moon. And let's see how they turned out. This month I didn't look at it, or this week I didn't look at any of the numbers in advance. So, Kill the Moon had 4.82 million viewers, which I think has been about standard. Am I right?
I think so.
That was 21.5% of the total
That
TV
might be a
audience.
little down.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a downswing.
I was trying to remember if the previous were closer to 5 or closer to 4.
Much
Actually,
closer
it
to
is.
thinking it
five
might
or
have been like
five.
4.9.
It's the third most watched program of the day instead of the second.
Yeah, it's the third most watched, and I think it's also down another spot, being 21st instead of 20th most watched program all week.
Of course, a big chunk of this is Strictly Comes Dancing. Has taken the top spot with 8.84, which even beats out the X Factor.
I don't get people's fascination with really bland, boring reality shows.
It has a celebrity on it.
That doesn't
I
count.
don't know.
I don't care.
And some of them
Oh,
I
but
would
I'll wait till the
suspect-
celebrity's doing what their job
for some
is.
people, that's enough justification to pick what to watch. I don't know.
Then people need
Yeah,
to
in
be
a way,
smacked.
I can understand it a little better. Because I used to really love watching The Gong Show. And
See, that's the Gong Show.
well,
Not
really,
not everybody really wants to watch speculative fiction in order to relax. They just want to watch something normal.
well,
Normal's in the eye of the beholder.
especially the early ages of Strictly Come Dancing and that kind of stuff has that kind of Gong Show appeal where you're watching some of the worst acts you've seen in a long time and you get to laugh and make fun of it.
Well, that's usually only the first 2 or 3 episodes at most, and then it goes into boring stuff that no one cares for.
Well, not everybody agrees with that though. I don't know. I think it's something that people can sit down and turn off their brains to.
That's the thing, it appeals to the LCD, the lowest common denominator.
Well, or
I
people.
was going to
who
say, like,
work-
if you're saying it appears to LCD, the can't think of the full name of it, but I'm like, yeah, that would be a whole different topic.
Yeah, I think it's just people who get home from work and actually no, this is Saturday night, so they're not going to be getting home from work usually,
Not
but
necessarily.
they've been home from work since Friday. So
And I can understand wanting to sit back and watch something relaxing, but watch a game show. Watch the news or something. Why would you want to watch a bunch of boring Nimrods playing a fake game that's pre-edited and pre-scripted to quote-unquote beat reality? Because it's been
because
proven
game
that's
shows
not
make you
many
think,
times.
Matt. That's my idea is that game shows make you think, and the news is too depressing to really relax to.
The news
Especially
part I can
with-
get, but game shows make you
Yeah.
think? Not really.
I was gonna say, especially with the whole thing about Ebola and everyone trying to hide that.
Let's
as
not
much
talk
as
about the
possible.
news here too, because I don't want to get depressed. No, my thought is, it basically appeals to the common man, the common clave of the 21st century. Morons.
The kind of people that should be hit with a club instead of wielding one.
Anyway, it doesn't matter because, yes, Strictly Come Dancing is number 1, X Factor is number 2, and Kill the Moon is number 3. So, it does have the benefit of being the number 1 show in Britain that isn't reality TV. It is Casualty, which is, I guess, another...
Does that mean that BBC is becoming MTV?
No. It means it's becoming a network.
And MTV is a network. It's becoming MTV.
It's no different from CBS, Fox, NBC, ABC. They're all doing stuff like this.
Oh.
Remember when TLC used to be the Learning Channel?
Now it does the opposite.
To just show cartoons.
Remember when Saturday morning cartoons used to be a thing?
Yes.
Remember when MTV used to air music?
Yeah. Anyway,
Old jokes aside.
We just talked about not wanting to get depressed, so let's move on to Audience Appreciation Index. And Kill the Moon is at 82. This season's been coasting. Was it 84 and 86 it's been switching between? In which case this would be the lowest, or was it 84 and 82?
Between 82 and 84.
Oh, it was 82 and 84. Okay. Yeah. So this is on the low end of the standard deviation.
Yep.
So we still haven't gotten then an 85 or an 81. So
I'm wondering how many people of this just hit that appreciation index just because it's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And something popular, not just for thick people.
I don't know. Yeah.
Because it's been pretty standard.
Yeah, it has been extremely. I'm kind of wondering if some people just I don't know, put the number in advance or something, just keep hitting the same number every week.
I wonder at this point.
Okay. And we'll go on to Australia here. And Doctor Who has really slipped in Australia.
Yeah.
But it's had
Apparently it had stiff competition from the National Rugby League Grand Final.
Yeah.
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 Rugby.
So it got down to the 14th highest program. Is it still the second drama?
Does
it say?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. They
so we can probably assume it's still the second highest drama.
Easy to assume,
Maybe.
yes.
Although I think last week it was third, so that might not even be assumable.
It might not be, because if you also look, it used to be in the top 10, and now it's down to number 14.
Ooh.
So that's a slip that just the rugby final wouldn't exactly do it.
So maybe people are getting warned and they're turned off by it.
But I do know that sports include multiple different things on multiple different channels that would all be
not
competing
when it's a final.
Not something big. Yeah, it'll be only on one station.
Grand final is usually one match, but it might have been directly up against Doctor Who. So
no, but there's probably a pre-show that probably counts as a separate thing. There's probably ESPN's coverage of it versus Fox's coverage of it. I don't know sports. I'm just spitballing here.
I also don't know how many different broadcast channels there are in Australia.
Yeah, that too.
And by the way, if it works anything like America, when somebody purchases the license for it, it's an exclusive license. Only one channel would be showing.
Well, even that. I mean, if it's American, doesn't ESPN have 4 different channels, and any other network also has 4 different channels, etc.?
Yeah, but they're all showing different events. If ESPN1 is showing the World Series, for example, there wouldn't be because it'll be on network TV, but this is just an example. ESPN2 would be showing basketball or something like that.
Oh, okay.
He's showing something completely different. But
I thought it was usually set up so that each sport had its season not overlapping with others.
That's during a regular season. That's a possibility.
This is again a special.
The same thing. But for things like grand finals, or that's the rugby equivalent of the Super Bowl in Australia. Mm-hmm. One channel is probably going to purchase exclusive rights to air it, so they can raise their prices of commercials, etc.
And really hike it.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens with the Super Bowl is NBC or Fox or somebody is going to buy exclusive rights to it, so they can sell the space at a premium and get all the people watching. Even so, you are right that there may have been a pre-game or a post-game show listed separately. However, I do think that since it has slid to number 14, it might be a combination of people that were watching the football instead of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But it also could just mean that the Australians' attentions are starting to wane on it.
Yeah, and granted, if say 10, 11, 12, and 13 were all fairly close to each other, and it was rugby versus Doctor Who, causing Doctor Who to drop by 250,000, that might have caused the three that were below it to each move up in the rankings without increasing their own viewership.
But again, it also depends on time.
Like I said, we'll see next
kind of hard
week.
to tell without more numbers.
It's hard to even tell right now, and we're just running this in a circle again.
All right, our next, we have final ratings on The Caretaker. I think that's weekly final, though. Yes, that would have been weekly final. 6.81 million. So again, in the 7 million ballpark, but it is dropping.
Yes.
It dropped from, I think it's been closer to 6.9. Now it's pretty much at 6.8. So it's slowly dropping. It's probably going to pick up again in a couple episodes as we get ready for the finale, though. So it includes those recording the program and watching within 1 week. So if you watch within 1 week on your DVR, it's counting. I don't think Red Button counts in this. I think that only. I mean, not Red Button. What am I trying to say? iPlayer does not count in this, but it does count in the final position that will be out next week.
Yep.
So actually, yeah, if a 1/10 of a million watched on iPlayer, actually, it might not have really dropped.
Depends.
Which brings us to our final time heist.
Yep. 14th most watched program for the week of 21st September, and this one totaled just under the 7 million mark with 6.99.
Okay, so I
under.
might be wrong about it dropping, because, yeah, 6.99 is not really a severe drop, considering even Deep Breath, I think, was 7.2 million.
Then again, this was Time Heist, and it was awesome.
Yeah, but it was also episode 5.
And it was right up against the Great British Bake Off, which was the top place for that particular week.
So considering that it was also against something really huge there, it did pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, like this one is also counting people that watched it on their DVR, iPlayer, and whatever.
It also, that same week...
Oh, no, it's not counting DVR that watched it more than a week later, okay. Oh, it does not include iPlayer, okay. So,
nope.
For some reason, the Deep Breath numbers we were given included iPlayer, but these don't. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, mind you, that was only a couple weeks back, so it's possible that those haven't been released yet. Theoretically...
Oh, yeah, it might still be available on iPlayer, yeah.
Yeah, that might... Technically, we should be getting...
File statistics on everything in a couple of weeks.
Well, no, I mean, we got that one a couple weeks ago. We should have gotten Into the Dalek last week, and we didn't. So, Robot of Sherwood should have been the conclusion this week.
Although I don't think we've mentioned this. From what I've seen, apparently it only counts the iPlayer if the iPlayer is affiliated with the TV. So I don't know if you have to register or whatever. If someone watches the iPlayer, you kind of have to
register your TV in Great Britain anyway. It's part of their licensing tax.
But since the iPlayer is available to everyone in Britain, because everyone who watches is expected to have a license, if you watch it on a computer that's not registered to a TV, it does not count in the final ratings. So from what I understand, it's something like 20% of all iPlayer viewings do not end up counting for that reason.
Sounds wonky,
so that's probably like
anyway.
if you watch it from a public computer or something.
Yeah. It also had further stiff competition that week because Downton Abbey, ITV's big soap, had just premiered its series premiere that week. So, and Downton Abbey's huge in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So it had the Great British Bake Off, and on topping BBC, and Downton Abbey topping ITV that week. I could see why it was only the 14th most watched program that week.
It had a lot of really hard competition.
Special and a premiere of a big freaking drama.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too surprised with Time Heist. It's still an awesome episode. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Best this series thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Should we move on? Yeah, probably should move on.
Yep. Our next
should.
bit of news, not as relevant in the States, but it does have some relevance, is that German fans are petitioning for Netflix to dub Classic Who seasons 1 through 21. Apparently, DVD distributor Pandastorm Pictures cannot afford to do so. So they're trying to get Netflix to do so.
Yeah, Panda Storm.
The reason it has relevance for us is that if Netflix dubs the first 20 seasons, odds are then they will then get the license to stream them in general. Although it might not because of international licensing and everything else,
Yeah,
but
That
it
depends.
possibly could.
That's kind of the difference. Is that that
Yeah,
does not necessarily mean they'll have the North American distribution license.
true. But if
I wish
I mean,
they
if,
would, so that all of Doctor Who would be on Netflix. I would, be freaking ecstatic on that.
Oh yeah.
right.
It
The
would
the
make it a
reason I
lot
think it's a
easier for us to
possibility.
review classic episodes, because that means I wouldn't have to run out to the
Yeah.
store and purchase a DVD every time we decide to.
Get one
There-
that newly released.
The reason I think it's a good possibility is that most of these rights are owned by, I would assume, BBC International, which is an international thing, so they could buy it, worldwide. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I could see Netflix being like, hey, listen, I want to buy the German rights, but if I do, I want you to give me a discount on the American and British rights or something.
They might do that. I don't know. Typically speaking, BBC Worldwide has always been a bit of a douche regarding classic Doctor Who distribution rights. I don't know if that's eased up a little now that they're also pulling in, money hand over fist from New Who. But I know it's been an issue ongoing ever since they took over the North American rights from Lionheart, that they've been very selective on what they'll license, and they want boatloads of money for it.
We'll have to wait and see. Although I would argue that if there was anyone out there that could afford the bucket load of money, it would be Netflix.
True. They're
Or
I know
Amazon.
there's other streaming companies out there, but
Netflix kind of started it and cornered that market pretty early. And they've been making,
Yeah.
and they're still the go-to name.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that the other companies that are making streaming things a la Netflix are just shooting themselves in the foot for not just going with Netflix right now.
I'm
They're
actually a little
big
bit
fish in that pond.
surprised. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Amazon Prime is not offering more Classic Who DVDs. So that might say something, in backing up what Randy said about BBC International or BBC Worldwide and not exactly playing ball in that area. Because if Amazon is deciding it's not worth it, then that could say a lot.
Yeah. This is like I said, back in the '80s, when Lionheart was doing the distribution, Doctor Who was almost a staple on every public television station in the U.S. because it was cheap, because it was good, and because it got ratings. In 1991, after the series had wrapped up and Worldwide took it from Lionheart, they completely changed how it was done. They wanted the licensing rights per episode, not per serial. And it basically meant that a public television would have to pay 4 to 6 times the price that they had been before, and it just became not viable for most of the public television stations in the U.S.
4 to 6 times, sometimes up to 8 times the price.
Yeah. Or 10 to 12 times, depending on the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's some
Although
long
Netflix
ones.
kind of does it more by DVD, so they might get away with. They might get they might manage it a little bit differently if they say, buy the rights to air the content on disc 1 versus episode 1, but that's more into the realm of
And
how
that's
they
a
do
very
things
gray
that isn't really
area, though,
public.
too.
Yeah,
It's
that's not really public
something
information.
that they
So
could negotiate with on, and we can only speculate.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
speculation, nothing but.
Yep. So we move on to our miscellaneous news, and that is the reopening of the Doctor Who experience on October 24th, featuring a trailer that is narrated by Lala Ward, speaking from the final days of Gallifrey.
Really?
Okay. And I will now be starting a Kickstarter to fund my trip to go see the Doctor Who experience in Cardiff. I really want to, really, really badly.
That would
Oh,
not,
wow,
that would not
there's
be
a Steel
Kickstarter.
Rassilon and everything.
That would not be Kickstarter unless you're making a project. That would be either Indiegogo or Pitch In.
I really want to see this badly. Makes me wish I really had money so I could, just say, hey, we're going to Cardiff next week. Schedule time off.
Schedule time off, get a flight to go meet some friends out there.
I like how the article says the exhibition closed in August to allow for a regeneration. So the exhibit regenerated to add in the 12th Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, technically the exhibit was still in use while it was closed because apparently Peter Davidson borrowed it for a little bit because I knew the old Doctor Who experience had the 80s era TARDIS console, which he used quite a bit for making specials during that time.
During the past 2 months?
During the past, yeah, he was doing stuff prior to Capaldi's release, in search of the perfect companion / perfect Doctor in both times.
Oh, the specials that they aired before Deep Breath?
Yes.
I still need to see those, actually.
Well,
Thank you for reminding me.
Part of their segue bits was when he was going from X to Y in there, he was be traveling using the 80s TARDIS console, the one that he supposedly built just prior to the 5 Doctors.
Yeah. Which was one of the better consoles of that run, to be honest.
And I noticed, I'm not playing this because you would all hear it, but the console behind Capaldi in the Frozen thing is the classic TARDIS console. I suspect
that's the 70s, right?
Remade.
Actually, that looks to be the 60s one.
Yeah, I'm suspecting that's the console they remade for Adventures in Space and Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the 60s one kind of fell apart and was remade in the 70s, but I might be wrong.
Like I said, I'm suspecting that's the reconstruction from an Adventure in Space and Time.
Yeah.
Because that looks like the 60s console.
Yeah, that weird, ugly greenish blue and the completely clear.
I also think of it with the green. I consider that to be more of a third Doctor thing, because the first and second Doctors, it appered to be white, even if it wasn't physically.
Though. It was that same color.
But on screen, it was a white console. Versus, in universe, it was a white console.
Yep, and that was the difference, was the fact that in black and white, that green color appeared white better than white did.
Whereas the third Doctor era was the first time that you could look on screen and see green paint.
And, the Doctor was out of the TARDIS most of the time, so...
So they hardly ever used it. They used it a grand total of like twice.
And then
he did spend a couple seasons in the TARDIS.
Yes, I know, but I can't remember if he kept that green console the entire time.
No, by the time the Doctor was in the console regularly, he had the new 70s model.
White console, which got refurbished a few times, but only minorly. Like they added stripes at one point, and occasionally would replace a panel.
Replace a panel, put in new upgraded lights and switches.
And, I'm not sure so much if that was a recolor, if that was a completely new console or just a repaint and a few new panels. Because I think the major console overhaul was during the season that Tom Baker was using the ancillary control room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time that they completely replaced it, for sure.
But the one behind has all the dials and stuff from, like, the original episode, so I'm pretty sure that's the Space and Time recreation.
Yep.
I'll have to look at this trailer later. I don't want to look at it during the podcast for licensing reasons.
Yeah, which is also why I just barely got started, so I would start, but then pause it before anything could happen, and I've been only stopping on quick frames.
So, yes, I want to go see the Doctor Who experience. When they had the Star Trek experience in Vegas, I always wanted to go and could never afford it. And, of course, it's gone now, and I'm depressed to this day.
They also got rid of Kong, as far as I'm aware, Universal as well.
Okay, so moving on to our next one.
Yep. Speaking of
And
Kickstarter,
our next couple bits of news are Kickstarters that are somewhat Doctor Who related that I figured are worth talking about a bit. The first is the Minister of Chance movie. It's based off of a series of, they call it podcasts, but what it sounds like is more an audio drama type thing. From what I hear, they're really good, but I have not experienced it myself. Have any of you heard any of it?
No.
No. So, I don't know. I guess anyone's free to look it up. The audios are apparently free, but they're looking to fund a movie, and the reason why it's relevant is, as you can see if you're looking at the image there, Paul McGann and Sylvester McCoy both feature in it. Based on what I'm seeing on the Kickstarter, either McCoy features in it a lot more, or he just has a lot more time to promote it, because he seems to be heavily involved in a lot of the various Kickstarter items there.
I'm surprised that he has the time, considering he should be out filming. Or I guess he's done filming now.
he's already done filming by now. They probably got done with him filming a long time ago.
Yeah, they haven't
sure
announced the Hobbit 4 yet, so.
If there is, fans will basically kill people. Okay. Alright, that's how I know the name Tamsin Grigg, as she's worked with Simon Pegg before.
Ah.
She was in Shaun of the Dead, which is one of the Pegg movies I actually know and like. Oh, she also appeared in The Long Game.
Which is also an episode that had Simon Pegg in it.
Now, this has nothing to do with that one little side project that was going on about, was it Big Bang Theory, the little Doctor Who like show that was on there, wasn't it?
Well, that wasn't on Big Bang Theory.
Started with a C.
Can't remember.
I know which one you're talking about.
And that's not Big Bang.
No, this is apparently something else entirely.
You're talking about the parody one, aren't you?
This was an internet thing.
Yeah, the parody of it.
No, this is not a parody. This is its own little thing.
Okay.
This does not look to be Doctor Who. It just happens to have Doctor Who actors.
Yeah, they
kind of all of the.
It's also mentioning something about time, though, too. So.
Yeah, and actually the shapes that are surrounding McGann and McCoy, those are kind of reminiscent of the Gallifrey alphabet, isn't it?
Reminiscent, but definitely not that close, though.
With more triangular.
Yeah, it's a little more.
It's very circular. It's very circular, and it's very, and McCoy's outfit is ridiculous, like what you would expect the Time Lord's outfit to look like back from the classic series.
Yeah, but that's all very circumstantial when you consider anything to do with alchemy or anything of that nature in fiction is going to have a lot of circular things, or magic or any of that will have a lot of circles and triangles.
Yeah, the symbols.
Any fantasy setting will have somebody dressing ridiculous.
Yeah, the symbols behind them actually look more like Illuminati symbols than anything.
I also kind of think the whole layout of the artwork looks very Doctor Who like, but it's got nothing to do with that.
I think the creators. I feel like the creators are probably Doctor Who fans, hence the casting and everything. But I think that's as far as it goes.
That's about as far as it gets.
Yeah, you've got the central picture of the companion-like person looking up at you, and like someone in the back of her, and this whole kind of mysterious feel to it. And then you've got, of course, the matte the filter, the green filter over the entire picture too. So
right, and I didn't see the thing about the time in the main thing there until you mentioned it, but that is interesting.
I'm really looking at McCoy, and wow, his face is getting old fast.
Yeah.
I think he's starting to look older than Christopher Lee.
Not to me, but maybe it's just the picture.
Because, well, yeah, Christopher Lee is kind of looking well preserved at this point.
But then again, McGann looks artificially aged there, so McCoy might be also.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, essentially what you described though there, Aaron, also describes just about every other generic horror movie cover too, so.
No, not really. This has kind of the same kind of layout that I've seen on various
Yeah, it does
Doctor
have a
Who
similar
and-
layout to a lot of the Doctor Who stuff, but I would also argue it still happens a lot in horror movies too.
Yeah, it
Well,
happens a
it's
lot
the
in
filtering
in
and
gen-
everything here.
let's just say
It's actually
in,
a very
in genre
powerful
fiction in
people.
general, those are all very common
Yes.
choices. So it's not specific to any one section of genre fiction.
But because it's Doctor Who, we're seeing a lot of Doctor Who symbolism in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To move on, because we have spent 40 minutes on the news so far. Our next one here is it's actually a documentary. It's a brief history of time travel.
Didn't
and that
BBC
I actually
America
watched
already
the
make
trailer
this
too.
documentary?
I'm not certain of it, but I know this. They mentioned, at least in the trailer, that there are a lot of documentaries about the science behind it, whereas this is looking, I guess, more at the fiction and the fandom and everything as well. There's also, if you scroll down, there's a list of people whom they've interviewed for the documentary. Obviously, we probably don't want to take the time to show the whole trailer on here, but
Yeah.
No.
I thought it was interesting, at least enough to pledge the $10 to get your name, to have your name listed on the website and whatever. But I didn't really go any farther for it.
I'm not really seeing. I mean, okay, they interviewed Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye will do an interview for a sandwich. Seriously, I have seen him interviewed on so much stuff, only like a third of which he actually had any bearing on. I swear you offer him a cup of soup and he'll do an interview with you.
Only if it's campus.
Well.
Here's some cream of tomato soup, Bill.
least. Huh?
Here's some cream of tomato soup, Bill. I need an
you're saying
interview.
Bill, yeah. Sure.
Bill Nye.
At the very right. At the very least, it's clear from here that these people are fans in general of time travel media. They didn't really give any reason to think that they're more expert than anybody else, but I think it's basically, fans making this. Well, that's kind of the thing Kickstarter is made for. But yeah, really no idea how much the people creating it know, other than that they seem to be really enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
But they've got 8 days to go and $1,800 left to raise. So if you at least want to see it made, share it or whatever.
More like 11,000 left to go.
Yeah,
Well, I said
11,000.
10,800. So yeah.
You said
No, yeah,
1,800.
closer to 10,000.
You missed a zero when you talked, Bill.
No. Wait, 1,800 and oh wait.
What are
Okay.
you reading? What are you counting?
No, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Their goal
No, I
is
said-
35,000.
I didn't say
They're at
10,800.
24 and a quarter.
Yeah. Thought I said 10,800.
Bill, the math.
You missed
Sorry, I
a
said
zero
10,000.
between 1 and 8.
Oh.
You fail at maths.
No, apparently I fail at speaking then, because I could have sworn I said 10,800.
No, you said 18,000.
He said 1,800. Make sure brain
Anyway.
is in before
Yeah,
engaging.
Bill said stuff. Let's move on.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Again,
be
we
tanging
don't-
like
we don't
this.
wanna-
We might as well give up.
We do want to get the news wrapped up in under an hour. We've got a few minor things, and that's just due to lack of covering them in the past and the fact that there's been an overabundance of them. There's been quite a few sci-fi television, either season premieres or series premieres, especially in the past week, but also within the past month. So we're going to run down some of them really quickly. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started a new season.
Yep. If you're a big fan of the MCU and you've seen the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., watch the second season. If you have not seen the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., wait till it comes out on Netflix, but tape it.
It's notable with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. A lot of people seem to drop off right before a tipping point in Season 1. and that is after a certain movie in Marvel Phase 2 came out, the show pretty much completely changed, not completely changed, but it heavily changed its premise. It heavily changed how much action was in it, and a lot of people feel that it greatly improved. So if you're one of those people that dropped off before that point, this might be a worthy jumping on point. I don't know how the season's going to be so far, and I personally...
You really need to get that part of that part of season 1. So
personally, I never had a problem with it when it was moving more slowly because I know these things take build up, but
The build up to the exploding point, and then they just got crazy.
Yeah, there were many people I knew that was done with it about halfway through the first season. They're just like, this is boring, I'm done with it. Most of them tuned back in. There was a guest appearance by Sif from the Thor movies, and that was
when Dark World came out.
But no, Thor: The Dark World came out about 6 episodes into the first season. Their crossover with Thor: The Dark World was a 5-minute bit in the beginning with them cleaning up afterwards. It was a real disappointment to my friend. But no, Sif appeared later in the series.
I thought it was in like an episode or so later. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
But regardless, it was enough that pretty much hooked a lot of people back into it. And so if you're going to be watching this, if you borrow somebody's DVDs or something, if you want to start watching it again, it is fairly good. A lot of drama. There's a lot of more tie-in with the Winter Soldier than with Thor. I will say that much. I will not say how.
Next one we have Gotham. Finally, Gotham got started up. It's the story of essentially it's Smallville for Jim Gordon. Is essentially
it's Batman Year Zero. Bruce Wayne has just lost his parents. It's focusing on Jim Gordon.
More like Batman Year -10, I think.
Well, regardless, I mean, it's like well before Year 1. Bruce Wayne has just lost his parents. It's dealing with a lot of the origins behind the Batman villains and other characters in the Batman series. The main character that you see in here is Jim Gordon, who it comes across a lot as a crime drama, but you still have that edge of Batman-y. It's kind of Burton-y, which is kind of cool, but not so much that it's over the top like the Danny DeVito Penguin was in the second Burton movie. Nonetheless,
Penguin's over the top, but not as bad.
Yeah, I actually like the Penguin character. Aaron and I have been watching this. We both think it's a great show.
One thing that really threw me off in the latest episode, Harvey the hypochondriac from Scrubs is the mayor of Gotham.
That didn't bother me.
And that...
I never watched Scrubs anyway.
Yeah.
I was just sat there watching that screen with my mouth open.
Actors need to find work after their other series go.
No, I know, but it's when you've only seen somebody in one role, and it's essentially a comedic, dumb role, and then they move into a completely different character, it throws me off. At least the first couple, at least in the beginning.
I don't know, maybe that's just you, Bill.
Character, I thought it was just fine as the corrupt mayor of Gotham. Yeah, I was fine with it.
Speaking of comedic Scrubs characters appearing in DC media, that actually would be a perfect segue to the next one, unless anyone else has anything to say about Gotham.
Watch it. That's it.
Yep. Watch.
That segue is that John Dorian's brother Dan is the same actor that appears in The Flash as the head of Star Labs.
Okay.
That was another one that had me open mouth.
Okay, so now we're moving on to The Flash.
Yes.
If you've watched Arrow, you'll probably be watching The Flash. It's not quite as Nolan-y as Arrow. It's a little more like...
the closest thing, I would consider it a blend between Arrow and, if anyone watched Static Shock. Essentially in Static Shock there was, I think it was a chemical event that caused a whole bunch of gangsters in the area to become supervillains, and one guy became a superhero to fight against them. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what the Flash show seems to be based on. We've only had the premiere so far, but that's the premise that they seem to have set up for us.
Because that was also Smallville, where the meteor accidents created all the rocks that were causing all the meteor freaks.
I did not know that because I have not watched an episode of Smallville.
That's what it was in the early seasons of Smallville. It almost became Monster of the Weeky.
Which figures.
Where the kryptonite was essentially causing meteor freaks. That were all the bad guys in the early seasons of Smallville.
Because the idea of kryptonite being a very rare commodity seems to have been lost over time.
Well, the thing is that the asteroids from Krypton where Clark's ship crashed was part of a meteor shower from the destruction of Krypton that was crashing in Smallville, Kansas. So this was not a global thing; it was localized in Smallville.
Aha.
And a whole bunch of small amounts of people managed to get their hands on the stuff and over time warped them by the time he was a high school student.
Yeah. It was like one
Well,
time.
yeah, altogether with Flash, though, it seems to be fairly good. They seem to have, set up a premise, set up a team, and they just have to go develop it from there. And Firestorm is supposed to be in it later in the season. And it's pretty clear that Professor Zoom is in some way involved. We actually do kind of see him in the premiere, kind of.
Yeah. I actually saw this premiere a few months ago, to be honest, because it got leaked.
Oh?
Yeah.
Did not
I've
know
had
that.
a copy of it for a while. I've had a copy of it, I think I got it around the same time that I started to get the leaks for Doctor Who. And it was given to me by a friend who's just like, here, and mind you, unlike the Doctor Who leaks, which were black and white, this was the full color show.
Ooh.
So they've actually had this for a while. They just were waiting for Arrow, I think, to have enough time to go too.
Mm-hmm. They probably filmed them almost next to each other.
Speaking of Arrow, their season premiere was earlier tonight. I have not yet seen it on the internet, but I'm sure by the time we're done with this podcast, it'll be somewhere watchable.
I have it taped, so I'm going to be watching it later, after Aaron goes to bed.
So neither of us have seen the premiere yet. Then
no, I had to go grocery shopping tonight, so I got home. We got home and got the groceries unpacked just about time for us to start the pre-podcast call.
Okay, but otherwise, you think it's been pretty good so far?
Arrow, yes.
Yeah.
It's been very good from the beginning of the first season. Like I said, it's very dark, very Nolan-y.
Season 2 is particularly strong, I'd say.
And then I was going to say it's been good from the beginning, and then season 2 it got even better. Because you really start seeing more of the DC universe in there.
It's getting a little less Batman-y as it goes along.
But it's still good. I mean, it's addictive good. It is probably, that's the CW, isn't it?
Both of these are, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is probably one of their top shows right now. It should be their flagship, if nothing else.
Yeah, I also really
Oh,
enjoy
wow.
it. I've just started watching it.
Yeah.
Oh god, what's his name?
We're
Something
gonna be
the Terminator.
We're gonna be marathon slamming season 2 because it just hit Netflix. So if you have not watched Arrow and you have Netflix, you can now watch the first 2 seasons there. Tape season 3, or if you have a DVR, set it for a series recording.
Or I'm trying to remember how many episodes Hulu saves on it, but I think it saves like 6
It's 2 or
episodes
3.
on a time.
2 or 3.
I thought it was
No,
more
it's
than
more
that.
like 4.
I think the CW keeps 5 in reserve.
Alright, guys, are we ready to talk about the episode yet?
Yeah, are we done tangent
Well,
on
I was
this?
just kind of
Trying to finish
wondering.
this.
But anyway, yeah, I see Deathstroke there, and he looks pretty cool. Anyway, we had a couple more yet?
Yeah. Well, I was building up to it. Tape it, watch it. If you have Netflix and you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, watch that. There we go. In a nutshell. Next.
Alright, to go through them quickly, Legend of Korra started season 4 recently. It's essentially a continuation of season 3, which was cut short by Nick, so if you want to call it part of season 3, you can. Season 3 was very strong, and if you're in any way interested in it, I would definitely recommend continuing to watch it.
Is that on Netflix?
It's gonna be Netflix, yes.
Okay.
It probably would be. I know.
The whole reason why they called it off the season early to begin with was to begin the transfer to make a Netflix only show.
Mhm.
Oh, they're planning on making it Netflix only.
Yes, for some reason they
I
think
know,
that they get better views on Netflix.
Yeah, because Nick doesn't like to promote shows that don't have yellow sponges in them. Speaking of Nick shows, another one that recently started back up was Power Rangers Super Mega Force. If you're already watching it, you know what to expect. If not, it's not a good jumping on point. Wait till next season. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is another one that started a new season after a very short break, I think less than a month. Their season premiere is essentially a Halloween episode in what is kind of a Friday the 13th homage. I really liked it, but it was probably essentially filler between the very plot-heavy ending of season 2 and going into the plot going forward.
Okay.
And our last one is Star Wars Rebels. The first new on-screen item in the new reboot Star Wars canon started filming. I and some other people I've seen online would essentially call it Aladdin in space.
Okay.
And if
Kinda, by the look of it.
if that appeals to you, or you want to see the new direction that Star Wars is taking, go ahead and watch it. And I think that is about it of our news and news-related
Does
items.
Marvel or DC have any new cartoons that are coming out that aren't sucky?
If so, I did not catch the news. Honestly.
The only one I know out there right now is Teen Titans Go, and that's crap.
Yeah.
I miss.
I very rarely follow cartoons, so the cartoons that I mentioned are pretty much the only ones that I've followed at all.
Okay, well, like I said, I missed the only two that were decent, and they got canceled. Stupid frickin' Cartoon Network. Anyway, so to the episode.
Finally.
Right.
Yes.
So summary. Anybody want to do the summary before I start one?
If I start a summary, it's gonna be very brief.
That's fine. We need brief. You'll be briefer than me.
Okie doke. So basically, the story starts up. The Doctor and Clara are having an argument. What's the new girl's name?
Courtney.
Woods.
Courtney. They're having an argument over Courtney. Apparently, the Doctor said in terms that she was not important, and it's apparently having an effect on her that she's acting out. To which the Doctor finally decides, sure, fine, we'll head to the moon. Will that make you feel important? Which is kind of an awkward mood swing for him to have, but okay, we'll go with it. So they head to the moon. Turns out that they're inside of a spaceship that's about to land on the moon. Awkward accident. Hitchhiker's joke there somewhere. They look around the inside of the hull where they're at, and they quickly figure out that they're surrounded by nuclear devices. The Doctor then starts up some sort of weird tangent with the people that just found them, essentially assuming that they're going to arrest them, fight with them, whatever. To which he quickly then figures out that they're actually not going to be violent towards them, but they will ask them politely, if not semi-forcefully, to please join them and not be a hindrance. They land on the moon to find out that gravity is still normal on the moon, which is not right. It's supposed to be much lighter than on Earth. They quickly figure out that the moon has been gaining weight somehow. They go to find a previous base that was I believe it was 6 months ago, something like that. The last feedback they got was people screaming and apparently crying for help. To which they said there's not enough money involved. Why would we bother at the time? Sorry, what was that?
I said it was about five-ish years, about half a decade, somewhere in there.
They go find the base. They find only one person dead hanging from a wall, and the entire place is covered in spiderwebs. The spiderwebs, again, hanging the previously mentioned corpse to the wall. They continue to look about, and they are attacked by a giant semi-glowy spider, which I believe had human teeth. Awkward, that. Kills one of the crew, and they manage to kill it because... what's her name again? Courtney?
Courtney.
I just remembered it again. Courtney happened to have antibacterial spray, which killed the creature almost instantly. To which the doctor, upon examining it, says the creature is essentially humongous bacteria. While they were inside, another crew member was told to turn back at one point, and he was headed back to the ship, to which he was jumped by one of these creatures as well. They decide that it's best to possibly go back to the ship and figure out what they're going to do, if they're going to stop the nukes or not. They end up separated away from the ship, but they still have the controls to set off the bombs with them. Courtney, I believe, also was sent back to the ship early and was sitting in the TARDIS at the time.
She asked to leave.
Yes. Because she was obviously starting to panic after the whole spider thing. As they sit back at the base, after also having found the excavation site where the previous base members were originally digging around, they also find them all dead, and also find a huge cavern system with more of the spider-like creatures inside of it. They figure that most, if not the entire moon, is now covered in these things, and they are still growing in number. Apparently feeding off of something huge inside of the moon in order to reach that size, which still sounds a little ridiculous, but we'll cover that later. They head back to the base to continue talking over things now that the power system was up and working at the base again. And Courtney gets brought in because they managed to make communications with her, I think it was her smartphone.
Yeah.
And upon looking...
using Tumblr.
And using Tumblr, to which the doctor had a negative reaction to as well. They managed to also find some of the research that the previous people had been doing and found out that there was actually something large, living inside of the moon, but it wasn't active yet. To which the doctor remarks that the entire moon is an egg and that the creature inside is apparently about ready to hatch, which is why the moon is growing to the point that it's about ready to essentially burst open. Excuse me. Courtney wants to get involved again, and the doctor has decided for whatever reason that this is a point that only the humans can talk about, so he gets his TARDIS to come back to him, drops off Courtney, and takes off in the TARDIS to go to the end of the waiting period to come back and see what they decided on.
Considering the fact that they are deciding whether or not to kill it.
Yes.
That's big.
Trying to decide whether or not they're going to set off the nukes and kill the creature or not. The debate continues, including the fact that they get temporary connection with the Earth to try and contact the Earth and ask their opinion on it, because it's a matter that is important to the entire planet. To which they ask if they believe that the creature should not be killed, leave their lights on. If they think the creature should be killed, leave their lights off. To which a mass majority decide to leave their lights off on the planet. How you can see that from the moon too is also another story. So they decided that they're going to let the bombs go off, but at the very last minute, Clara decides to pull the plug and cancel the explosion, which is right about the same time that the doctor finally pops up and says, "Have you decided yet?" The doctor then takes him down to Earth as the moon hatches. The moon lets out a giant winged creature, which apparently
is a giant dragonfly.
Essentially, yes, more or less. It looked like a combination of dragonfly and a moth to me, with those huge wings. But it hatches, and as it hatches, it apparently almost so simultaneously lays a new egg right where it was, henceforth creating another moon instantly. And because of all the attention that the moon got, the doctor predicts that the normal future where humanity goes off into the far reaches of space and inhabits most of it and survives being beyond Earth will still happen as originally planned. And that this is now a huge fixed point that will make everything else work out the way it should. He then tells Courtney isn't that special of being able to save the Earth in the future and being the first person on the new moon, etc., etc. And that more or less ends the story.
Well, except for Clara getting very pissed at the doctor.
Oh yes, that's right. At the very end, Clara also feels that she's been kind of cheated on and used and abused by the doctor, and says that she's had enough of it and wants to go home and wants the doctor to leave her be. To which she does have a talk with Mr. Pink, and he's like, "You're not over it. You're still reacting to it. Give it some time, then come back to me and tell me how you feel about it." To which she does have a drink and sits down and looks up at the moon and thinks to herself. The end.
Okay. So, this is getting about a 10 out of 10 on the ridiculous scale.
They used "kill Hitler" 3 times in one conversation.
Yes, I noticed that. I'm like sitting here, it's like, but you did go to kill Hitler because freaking River Song made you try.
Yes.
You failed. You locked him in a cupboard.
They should lock this episode in the cupboard with him.
Yeah, this episode really, really annoys me. It starts out okay.
It starts off okay, and actually I have to say, that upon original viewing, not a bit of this bothered me. But as I sat there and let it digest in my mind, I started to make more and more links to how this doesn't work right at all.
This episode would think that a dinosaur spitting a blue box out of its mouth was laying an egg.
Yeah, this is just so wrong on so many levels. The doctor, first of all, the fact that the moon is an egg. We've been to the moon. We've drilled on the moon. We've taken core samples. We know the moon's not an egg.
Mm-hmm.
It's very obviously covered in a ton of rock.
Well, covered is... The shell can be made of anything if it's an alien egg, but the core... No.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've drilled enough on the moon that we would know if the shell was a shell, and it's not. So already, this is hitting the ludicrous scale. Then we have the freaking children of Shelob that are supposed to be one-celled bacteria.
Those aren't one-celled bacteria.
Because single-celled organisms have exoskeletons.
And teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not holding up. It's
No, I thought they might have been. God damn it! Forgot the quote I was going to use, but prenatal lice. But then they said they were bacteria, and that made it worse.
Yeah, it's just not. This whole episode was bad. And you think about the conclusion. First of all, the doctor basically halfway through this, when this becomes a debate on whether to kill it or not, basically goes, I can't get involved.
Out of the clear blue sky, which he has gotten involved in stuff like this plenty of times before.
I can see
Exactly.
it being a key turning point in human events that he would want to take his hands off. But unlike the 10th or 11th Doctor, who would be sad and apologetic about not being able to interfere,
He's just angry and pouts and leaves.
A complete and total tit.
But
Yeah.
as I mentioned, I think I mentioned to Randy after watching this, if it were any species other than human, he would have no fucks given. He would be interfering his ass off.
Mm-hmm. And the moon being an egg wouldn't bother me if this was Planet X and Galaxy Y.
Yeah. This is the moon. This
I-
is something that we know better about.
But because of the current administration's need to ground this to the Earth, it loses all of its credibility.
There's also, if we're talking about credibility, there's also the fact that eggs do not just spontaneously gain mass. That's not how
An egg works.
That's not how anything works. That's not how eggs work. That's not how thermodynamics works. That's not how growing works. Growing works by taking in matter and making it a part of you to grow, not by spontaneously becoming heavier when there's nothing to draw from.
And then you have a newborn creature then proceeds to crap out another egg of equal mass. Is this thing a giant space tribble?
Of course, the egg was bigger than the newborn creature, which it would have had to be. So that raises all the more questions.
Yes, there's a whole bunch of scientific no. Just no.
It's Space Mothra.
That is kind of essentially what it is.
More or less.
Yeah, but you don't have the little miniature people chanting for it.
Not to mention, Godzilla has done Space Mothra, and it was way better than this.
Mothra goes through stages of growth before it's big enough to lay another egg.
Yes, that
this
too.
This happened within 5 seconds of it being born, which meant it had to be pretty much ovulating in the egg.
Awkward.
And then they cut off screen because they didn't have the effects budget to show it laying the egg.
Yet I had the effects budget to actually show the moon exploding in our opening. Now use still images, bitch. What's your excuse, Moffat?
This episode just managed to piss me off on so many levels. But okay, the point I was getting to is you have him doing the whole hands-off thing, yet the people that make the decision whether to not to blow up the moon or not is Clara, who the Doctor brought there in the first place.
Yes.
So if he would not be there, that particular decision would not have been made in that way.
Matter of fact, the exact opposite would have happened.
So the Doctor already being there has interfered in the natural course of events, which he was trying to do. Logic fails on so many levels.
Yeah. Apparently, the entirety of his logic is hinged on the fact that they shouldn't have even appeared in the first place, which means that nobody that was with him should also be there.
Granted, this is also the man who gave fire to a group of cavemen and has done a whole bunch of other things that greatly influenced the course of human history, so...
Well, we really don't know if those cavemen were human cavemen.
Yeah, we honestly don't know for sure.
And we really
we do know that the fire that he was involved in starting was a great one in Rome.
Yeah, but that probably would have happened anyway.
One of them in
we do know he was responsible for the Great Fire of London.
That too, yes.
Yes.
But it probably was started anyways because aliens were involved.
True. I mean, that's the thing. There was no alien involvement, so to speak.
In this one, no.
There was no aliens interfering with history that the Doctor was trying to correct or stop them from doing so. This is kind of a reverse historical drama in which the Doctor is dealing with an event in the future which should have occurred anyway, but whether his interference changed stuff, I would have to say yes.
Yeah.
Although I would have to say, apparently his deposition of Harriet Jones did not do much to change the reaction of the British space program to aliens.
Apparently not, no. Yes, because that's the thing.
Her first thing is that's what you do with aliens, right? You blow them up?
Yeah, I do like the Doctor's reaction on revealing that it's an egg, because the look on his face is like an 8-year-old boy that just discovered where his parents has hidden his Christmas presents. I
will say that, yes, Capaldi still puts out a hell of a performance in all of this.
Oh, God, yes. I am not in all faulting Capaldi.
No, this is him dealing with
he
the
was
script he was
spot on
given.
in this one.
But yes, because that look on his face is just great, because it's very rare that we see Capaldi's Doctor react other than cross. Because that's basically his general personality, is cross and a bit dickish.
Speaking of him not being cross, I love his reaction when Clara is bawling him out and he just does not know how to react without making it worse.
Yes. he's trying to tell her that he had the faith that she would make the right decision, which again, she shouldn't have been the one to make the right decision.
Exactly.
But he's just putting his foot further down his throat as he's doing it. I had no idea that the doctor had inherited Some syndrome somehow. Open mouth, insert foot. Keep opening mouth, insert foot deeper. Eventually you'll be able to walk again.
After someone else punches you in the face.
Eventually, the foot up his ass and the foot down his throat will meet, and they'll cancel each other out.
Apparently. Either that or the foot will meet the stick with Capaldi's case. Anyway, no, his expression that he had, that sheer joyful glee, is something that we have not seen in the Doctor. My reaction to the Doctor,
Recently, you mean?
Yes. Until you get to that phrase, how do we kill it? And again, yes, it was the closed mind. Any other Doctor, Tom Baker, Peter Davidson, maybe not Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, would have all responded to that with indignant anger.
Or even flat out telling them, they're not killing it.
No, they never do that. They never flat out say that, but they react outraged.
I think this Doctor kind of did too, because what he pretty much did was that's when he started becoming nasty and sarcastic and
yes, that I liked.
Generally unhelpful.
He was still telling them how to do it, but then reminding them that this was an innocent creature all the time.
But yeah, he kept forcing that down their throats too, which started to become forced. Very, very forced.
I didn't find it that way.
It felt very in character to me.
Preachy to me.
That felt like something the Doctor would do in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mind you, I would have thought this would have been a great grounds for another lash out against the military.
Yeah, that
actually could have worked here, yes.
That's what I would have seen. An innocent creature is about to be born. One of the great wonders of the universe is unfolding in front of your face, and all you can think of is, how do I kill it? So typical of the military.
Like when she said, how do I kill it? And I first thought it was that he was going to be like, oh, the military solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, that kind of phrase is something you would hear Tennant say. It's something you would hear Smith say.
Yeah, that would have been
something you would hear Eccleston say. Even something you hear Tom Baker say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hell, it's stuff you would hear Pertwee say.
Mm-hmm.
Goes as far back as the Third Doctor.
But instead, while he is reminding them, he's still also telling, well, you've got bombs. That should do it, And then he goes all hands off.
Which really becomes awkward.
Yes, it does. And whether or not they intended
it becomes a little bit more awkward when his hands-offness is, hey, there's also a 15-year-old girl. Let's get her involved.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we couldn't make this any more awkward.
Again, and there's Clara going, well, let's add somebody else. The president, and he's like, oh, the president's too busy.
Oh, I find it very interesting.
Speaking of the president, did I hear at the end of the episode correctly, when he's predicting Courtney's new future, that she's the one that's supposed to become president of the United States?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Last we checked, isn't Courtney a British citizen?
Don't know.
That's...
It seems that they were hinting that she was supposed to be American, actually.
I didn't even think about that.
They didn't say flat out where she came from. They did hint heavily that she was American, though.
She has a British accent, and she goes to school in London.
Yes, her accent's very British. She's going to Coal Hill School. One would assume she's British.
Oh, Courtney as in the little girl. Never mind. Yeah, as far as we're aware, they're British.
Yeah, because she's talking about her revised history and that she goes on to become president. That she's the president. And last I checked, you had to be born an American citizen to be president of the United States.
Yep.
Are you sure that he was predicting
and
Courtney's or
the
just
Trumpies,
the...
they reactivate?
Yes,
They
talking
actually
about
do
Courtney.
wind up doing the Schwarzenegger law.
Right. Now, back about the president thing. I find it very interesting that she specifically said the United States president. She didn't say anything about the Queen or King, or actually she's from nowadays, so she would have said the Queen of England or the Prime Minister of England. No, she went straight to United States with that solution.
Yeah.
I found that rather interesting because
Well,
Doctor Who up to now would not have done that.
No, it is, however, kind of the correct way in the fact that the leader of the free world is essentially the president of the United States. This
Or even
may
the UN Secretary General.
what?
Yeah.
It's
The
still
UN Secretary General.
America
someone you'd think-
dictates the policy that the world tends to follow. Whether or not this is the correct policy is not a debate for this podcast. And whether
Right.
this will actually continue to be true in the future as China gains more power also is not for debate in this podcast.
No, I mean, the reason I bring that up is I feel like, particularly in the RTD era, there was this running theme of Britain's golden age. John Sim as the Prime Minister of Britain taking over foreign policy while insulting the American president. And all these varying unrelated plot lines all about Britain taking their place as equals in dealing with all this extraterrestrial stuff.
Well, the Britinocentric policy goes way back. I mean, if you take a look at the space program during the Pertwee era, it was the British space program, which never materialized. And I think was already stillborn by the time those episodes aired.
Wow.
This is the first time you've actually heard to NASA being referred to and that kind of thing. So, it's kind of breaking a long-standing Doctor Who tradition, but it also might be a sign that the people producing Doctor Who has gotten more aware that Doctor Who is a global phenomenon, not just a British phenomenon.
True.
That I do have to give them credit for. That is an actual logical thing to think about.
However, logistics don't enter into it when giant parasite alien things on the moon.
Yes.
Yep.
I am sorry. That was just ridiculous. Because not only did they look like spiders, they acted like spiders.
Yes, more or less.
They made webs.
They made webs.
Yeah.
They had webs. They
Bacteria that makes webs. That's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that they can make web-like structures, but it's mostly from stringing their bodies together, not from silk-weaving glands.
Yeah. The spiders did not act like the single cellular bacteria that they were supposed to be, and yet they were still outdone by a simple can of antibacterial spray.
And even then, I feel like a man-sized amoeba being sprayed with like a germ cleaner, it would still not be potent enough to kill it.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I would have actually liked it better if they looked like man-sized amoebas, by the way. Or green amorphous.
Yeah, that would have fixed a lot of the problems with that particular sentence.
Yes.
If they were slimed to the wall and what they came out was green amorphous blobs, I would have been okay with them being bacteria.
Yep.
But no, they had to look like they had been stolen off the freaking CGI from The Hobbit and added neon stripes to them.
It would have been a good excuse to reintroduce green bubble wrap to the SFX department.
This is bubble wrap. We're gonna wrap our actors in it, and then we're gonna make them crawl around the set.
And for those whose head that went over, that was essentially an Ark in Space reference.
My brain just went sideways again. It's been doing this all week. With the spider things coming out, you see the Doctor and them all panicking, prepared to do that, and all of a sudden you see Sylvester McCoy come on in his freaking outfit from Lord of the Rings going, No, you're on the wrong set.
You there.
I'm filming a movie, don't you know?
Come on, a la Radagast.
Bird poo and all.
Now, come on, gather up, come with me. We have to get to the Mirkwood set.
I have a sleigh with rabbits!
Oh, hi, Peter. Hi, Syl. What are you doing here? Oh, just gathering some lost things. Come on. Brain, wrong. Must kill Brain.
What strange little men are these?
And, you know, it's something else, too. The Doctor then proceeds to go on, when he's talking about the egg, and mention the fact that it has to be the last of its kind. How the hell would he know?
Yeah, there's no logic involved there, especially since he didn't...
I'm just going to assume things!
If he had said the name of the species and be like, I thought they were extinct, okay, I could buy that. But instead it's like, oh, because it's an egg around the Earth and you don't see other eggs around the Earth, it must be the last of its kind?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, it's like, you just added that line for no reason. And I'm sitting here, my brain on the second watching is going sideways on this too, going, okay. So it's a creature that's essentially born pregnant, lays its first egg right after it's born, and there's not a billion of these things. Why?
Not to mention the eggs being laid in a variety of other places right now, probably also all hatching pretty soon.
So my brain goes sideways, and it goes to the superhero squad version of Galactus, munching on a moon and going, ooh, I do love the ones with the creamy filling.
Or were they all wiped out when they had that war against the Republic? And that joke will probably require an explanation. In the Star Wars Legends universe, there's a species known as the, I believe, Star Dragons. Their full name is the Dwynagwin, I believe, that are essentially this.
Arg.
Except they communicate telepathically, so they probably would have spoken if they were in this episode. I think they do anyway.
Which might explain why the Doctor knew it was the last one.
Well,
it's psychic. It told him.
Considering this is Star Wars
that means not only was it species a long time ago, but should have been from a galaxy far, far away.
Well, this one happened to get a little closer.
Oh, God. The final bitch about this episode is that it really kind of became a morality drama.
Yeah.
That a lot of people, myself included, began to see as an analogy for pro-choice, pro-life. I know Shayna, who's been on the podcast before, really saw it like that and instantly despises this episode as a result. As if there wasn't enough reasons to despise it beforehand.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I even feel that towards the end, even with her discussion of the Doctor, seems to be kind of about how he nearly tricked her into doing it. You know, how in the abortion debate, a lot of people will suggest that women are being, you know, either forced or talked into getting abortions against their will by men, you know, or you know, other people.
Society in general.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of, I see it at least as a kind of a common pro-life kind of argument. So.
I'll put it to you this way. I believe that a woman is allowed to do what she wants with her body. I'm going to
have to backcharge you there, Matt, because we're getting political.
And while there are some
card, Matt.
We really don't want to get on
that. We don't want to get political about it. We only want to talk about how the episode itself.
We're worried about the episode. Yeah.
All right.
Fine.
Do we feel that it was handled appropriately, or do you think that was kind of?
No, it was.
Do you think
it was
kind of
definitely handled kind of sloppily.
I mean, I'm all up for discussing stuff like that, but you have to kind of word it properly, and you have to kind of handle it delicately and with very informed. Be more informed about it, I guess.
And the thing is, I don't know how big of a debate this is in England. I honestly don't. I tried looking that up. I found no data. It's, of course, huge here in the United States. It's a
And
major
of course,
political.
invoking the President of the United States in the discussion kind of lends itself toward being involved in the United States political
So you're
discussion.
thinking the writer actually knew about this debate and was writing it in there deliberately? Because if so, he was writing it with a hammer.
Or it was just particularly sloppy.
Either that, or he's particularly, sloppy and clueless.
I'm just saying, if it was completely accidental, invoking the word President of the United States does not makes it worse.
Especially, like, as you've mentioned before, that using the United States as being the authoritative body is out of character for the Doctor Who universe.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, if a political discussion about that topic were to say the president should decide, there would be riots.
Mm-hmm.
And that
regardless
being said,
of whether or not we had a female president at that time.
Now, Bill, you said that you saw some people debating that that the reverse was actually true about this episode. That
yes,
some people
it was essentially a response to people who did claim they had problems with the episode because of it being pro-life. The arguments that I've seen were essentially that one, that the Democratic vote was not allowed to make the decision, and two, that it was essentially made by a group of women. And that the man refused to be involved. There's also a quote that I actually noticed during my second watch that does kind of somewhat support that. Not completely to the point of saying it's definitely true, but he does use the words, "It's your moon," and then a word that sounds like womankind. It might be humankind, but it sounded more like womankind.
No, he said womankind.
It sounded like he said, "It's your moon, womankind. It's your choice." So that does lend itself toward the pro-choice side of the analysis.
It doesn't. And I will give you the basic why. Because the basic argument of that point is whether to kill this unborn creature or let it live and be born naturally. One side, the people that we know as the protagonists of the series, let me finish, Bill. Let me know as the people that are the protagonist of the series are arguing to let it be born, and the guest people are arguing to kill it, and the protagonists are making the quote right decision by letting it live. That, in a nutshell, is a pro-life stance.
Yes.
And I mean, in terms of the general, and I can disagree because pro-life doesn't necessarily mean pro-choice doesn't mean the choice to. That the choice is always one way or another. It's that each individual choice is up to the group that makes that individual choice, and that's where I can see that part of the argument regarding this episode. In that the male figure is refusing to take part in the discussion, and that it is not allowing it to be democratically decided. It is being the choice of these specific individuals who are capable of making the choice. And I'm not saying that it's a perfect analogy or perfectly done, and honestly, watching the episode, I don't even see it because generally abortions do not occur during birth, for one thing, and I just would stay out of that completely given the choice. But I'm saying I can see those lines lending themselves toward a pro-choice analysis.
Well, mind you, the other issue too is that the arguments that Clara are using, the lines are using, are almost verbatim lines from the pro-life stance. And that was, I heard a few of those lines, and I had heard those same lines coming out of pro-life activists. Yeah. So that also set off flags in my mind.
While I would argue that it's hard not to have a hint of pro-life, pro-choice in a story like this, at the same time, I would also argue that if you handle it better, you shouldn't even be covering that topic to begin with, if that's not what your point is.
That is a tricky place to go with Doctor Who, because I cannot see the Doctor ever endorsing any sort of death on, pretty much, even if it is the only choice, the whole point of the Doctor is that he finds a magical decision to make it not be the only choice, which does not apply to the real-life debate.
Mm-hmm.
And would be a faulty enigma of what the topic is anyway.
Like, if a Doctor Who character was to the point where they needed an abortion or they were going to die, he would find a hospital ship that could teleport the baby into an incubation chamber to keep the pregnant woman from dying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're in
yet another
that's
Doctor
the whole
Star
thing.
Trek crossover. I think they actually did that once in a Star Trek episode, but
Did they really?
I think they might have.
Yarg.
Anyway, it just, regardless, the writing of it was very sloppy and ham-fisted. It's obvious that this guy, who was the writer again?
His name is Peter Harness. I almost said the director's name, that's why I paused.
Harness?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this was his first outing in Doctor Who.
Yes.
I think he accidentally stepped in a little bit of something a little too hard and didn't realize it until it was already out the door. Maybe.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his previous credits, and he really hasn't done anything like this before.
I think it's technically a newbie first mistake.
But here's the thing: the executive producer overseeing him has definitely dealt in issues not necessarily abortion, but Series 6 had to do a lot with that general ballpark, to the point where he should have had been able to give some sort of guidance to that.
Yeah, that's assuming that the executive showrunner was actually paying attention.
Yes.
And
this is one of the few that he doesn't.
Executive producer that the series before let Journey to the Center of the TARDIS slip through his attention span.
Or
around the same point in the season too. Well, half season.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you would have thought somebody in the editing phases would have looked at that and went, "Okay, that's a can of worms we don't want to open up here."
Or even, I mean, come to think of it, he would have wrote the pitch for that episode, wouldn't he? Because aren't these episodes normally the exec writes the pitch and then commissions somebody to write it?
Something like that.
At least that's how it was in the RTD era.
All the time, though. He could have wrote, a bare bones pitch. In other words, he needed some kind of conflict to tear apart Clara and the Doctor. And that was all he needed for this episode, and the rest of it all just came up out of the writer's hands.
Because that's a great figurative argument. Yes, if we need an argument to split up our male and female protagonists, so how about we make it an abortion analogy?
Yeah, that sounds really bad.
That makes it just worse.
Yeah. I think this episode came about from a bunch of people not thinking.
Just not paying attention to what they're doing until the final product was already out the door.
By the way, since we've been fairly negative to this point, I do want to bring up one piece of praise I did have for this episode. And that is that I think it was the best appearance of Danny Pink yet.
That doesn't say much. Because we've really only seen him in 2 previous episodes. And one of it being a week ago, and he spent a good chunk of that episode being the Mickey.
Yeah, I will say that doesn't say much, but at the same time, he does give more worldly smart advice than he has thus far in the entire series. In just that little scene he was in.
His statements were justified, rational, and
thought through.
Worthwhile.
Well, again, this is somebody who has spent time doing military and obviously had to do something really, really, really bad under orders. We don't know what. But it's
although we can guess at this point based on implications that had to do with the death of civilians.
Yes,
possibly.
That's all we know, though. We don't know the details. But whatever it was, apparently gave him a massive case of battle fatigue. Not PTSD, but the battle weariness. And he's starting to see the same thing in Clara. that the beginning of battle fatigue.
The beginning of not wanting to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of stuff that does cause people to do the infamous 1,000-yard stare that David Tennant was so good at giving.
Speaking of which, you know who Clara reminded me of at the end? Tegan in
a bit,
Resurrection of the Daleks.
Or Resurrection, yes.
Resurrection, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, she is starting to have the Tegan response that it
stopped being fun.
Yes. It stopped being fun and it's getting too dark for her. And at the same time, I think that particular reaction's a bit much. Because Tegan had a very good reason to have that reaction.
Oh yes, she had a lot of really dark stuff.
She had a lot of people that she knew and care about die. And then she watched a bunch of other people die by the truckload.
Yeah, Clara hasn't had that much, although she's had a few close calls here and there.
She's had a few close calls, but she hasn't.
The question is whether or not she remembers dying multiple times herself.
Dying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember she was the impossible girl?
Yeah. And we don't know how much of that she remembers or not, because with true Moffat writing, it has never come up again. Except, well, actually, no. We know she knows stuff.
We know she knows a lot about the previous Doctors.
Although, a lot of that has apparently been thrown out the window this season. For instance, Clara's reaction to the Doctor regenerating in Deep Breath was a little over the top for somebody who would have been there to witness the Doctor regenerate in every other time he's done it.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So Clara should have been the one to go, oh, here we go again.
But she wasn't, and Moffat screwed up writing her yet again.
Mm-hmm. Because she basically pulled a Rose at that point. Because Clara's Deep Breath thing was essentially Rose from the Christmas Invasion.
That's not my doctor, where's my doctor?
Legitimately explained why she didn't remember anything from that episode.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have any kind of explanation as to why she wouldn't remember stuff that she obviously hints at remembering later.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has hinted at that she remembers some of that stuff this year already.
So arguing now that her whole bit is weariness from all that seems to be putting it's like giving her cake and having her eat it too. You can't have both. It's got to be one or the other. So Come on, guys. Get your heads together and get it right.
Stop being the Infinite Crisis, please.
Mm-hmm. So I liked Tegan's version of this a lot better than I'm liking Clara's.
So far, yes.
Danny's reaction to this may turn out to be more. He may turn out to be more Ian than Mickey, and I'd like that.
That would be nice.
I think about
What did you guys think of Courtney?
What? Courtney.
What did you guys think of Courtney in this episode?
Courtney's okay. She still annoys me at times.
At times, but that's again being a little brat. Any little kid will get on your nerves at times.
I think they're writing her a lot younger than the character is, which is a little bit annoying.
Yeah, it really threw me off when she said she was 15 because I was thinking 12.
Yeah.
12, maybe at best 13.
10,
that might just fall into the thing where a lot of people just don't know how to write anybody below the age of 20.
Mm-hmm.
And that also might be because she's also having her little childish fit because the Doctor kind of rejected her. And that has a harsh effect on a kid of any age.
Or even in the first half of the season, I would have got the impression that she was significantly younger than 15.
Yeah.
Even if we take into account the fact that probably a year has passed between Deep Breath or possibly even if we say 2 years have passed between Deep Breath the flashback in Deep Breath and this, which is kind of a stretch, I think. If we say that, it's still Maybe. But even then, it's kind of a stretch.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, for a 15-year-old to be going, to be doing the equivalent of Clara and Danny sitting in a tree,
Right.
KISSING. That's something that 8-year-olds do.
Yeah.
She's 15. When I was 15, I was more interested in the latest video games than I was on people, whether my teachers were having relationships. If they would, I would have thought more power to them. You know?
Mm,
Well, I know married couples that were teachers in the same school, so
Yeah.
that's not really anything new to me.
Yeah, it didn't really, that the whole obsession with Clara and Danny Pink being in love with each other seemed to be kind of
and there's still very little chemistry there, by the way.
Yeah, there isn't that much chemistry because he still leaves her on her own to think about it.
yeah, but no,
Instead of trying to help
what
her
I'm
get
saying
over
though
it.
is I still think it's a little under, it's elementary school, not high school, to use our terms.
Yeah.
Which actually kind of, I mean, that kind of tangentially makes me think of the fact that we're in this episode, like up until now, like at least in private, like in general, like she would call her Ozzy, and like in like the little like graffiti and whatever, and or when she's talking to her friends. Whereas here, it's she's uncomfortable calling her anything other than Miss, and I found that kind of interesting.
That's kind of, yeah, it's kind
Whether
of different.
whether if it's because she's in an unfamiliar situation, or if it's because she's actually talking to her face to face, one on one, instead of being part of a faceless crowd for once, or what.
Yeah, you would think, considering the fact that she's now part of the TARDIS team, so to speak,
Mm.
that it would have loosened up her relation. I mean, I can
Right.
understand
Well,
it's very
that's like
strict.
Clara was like, "Go ahead, call me Clara."
Yeah, yeah, and I don't remember Susan having to call
No, never.
Ian and Barbara. Um,
Sir or Miss.
what?
She never had to
Miss
call them Sir or Miss.
and Mr. Chesterton, other than the first episode
Yeah.
when she's in school,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
or at Sir or Ma'am. Either way, once they were on the TARDIS,
Yeah.
they were Ian and Barbara. And so this call me Miss is either her being deliberately confrontative to Clara's presence.
Oh yeah. You said it backward as "call me Miss" instead of her saying that she'd
Yeah.
rather call her Miss.
Miss is being deliberately confrontative to Clara's presence, or she's too freaked out to do anything else.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not going to make the best of companions.
Then again, we're also talking about a child, and she's totally new to this stuff.
It's also possible that it's guilt over someone who, she's been talking crap about her behind her back, and now she's face to face with her and isn't ready to call her by a familiar name yet as a result.
It's possible. I don't know. It still seems a little bit off to me. But like I said, I still think they're writing her younger than she is.
Which is also very possible.
I will say this. She's still a far cry better than the kids from Nightmare in Silver.
Yes.
So at least there's that.
They managed to write a child slightly better than the previous, yes.
So I think at this point we're going to go to final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've run out of things to bitch about. Anybody have anything else they need to bitch about?
I think we covered most of it.
Okay, awesome. All right, final thoughts will be in the relation that you are on my thing, which starts you with Aaron.
Final thoughts. I just, maybe if it were more of a fantasy, like you mentioned before, if this was not Earth but another planet.
Planet X and Galaxy
with another
Y,
moon.
as I said.
Yeah, Planet X and Galaxy Y, where this, it would be a little bit more. It would be a little bit more understandable, a little bit more entertaining. I'd be, a little bit more cool with it. I mean,
The whole
despite
fantastic
my
element
beliefs,
of it.
yeah, if it had a little bit more fantastic element, it would be a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more enjoyable. I also felt that what's her face? Was it Lethbridge Stewart's daughter?
In this episode,
the-
no, the blonde
the
woman, no.
astronaut lady. I can't even remember
She's
her.
an astronaut from the future. That's all she is.
Oh, really?
They don't really
Okay,
talk
for
about
some-
who she is much, or really explain themselves to her much either. She pretty much automatically gets all the implications of them being time travelers, and they never really discuss anything about anything
Captain
except for the plot with her.
Lundvik is her name.
Captain Ludwig.
Yeah, Captain Lundvik
Oh.
and 2 red shirts.
For some reason, I got her confused with Lethbridge Stewart. Well,
No.
Anyway, yeah, I wish that a lot of the characters had been fleshed out, including Courtney too. If she were fleshed out in a more believable way too. Yeah. So it could have been better. It didn't have to be this bad. Is my point. The end.
Okay, Matt?
And I'm sorry about getting political, by the way, first of all, but it's hard not to when the story leans so hard that way to begin with.
Yeah, I know, but we kind of mentioned that before the podcast that we were going to try to stay away from the political aspect of this.
But it'll happen nonetheless. Anyway, story. If it was not planned to be political, then it was poorly written. The effects, while decently done, suffered from a bad script, which made them stupid. As we even suggested, even having guys in bubble wrap would have been a smarter move than having spiders in this particular story, because it would make a lot more sense. The background characters for this one episode, yeah, totally forgettable, and we'll probably never see them again. Courtney did have her moment to shine, but sadly it was also due to a really bad plot device to try and explain away the spiders. And a lot of the physics, as we covered, totally bonk. Don't know what they were thinking. Yes, if this was an alien planet that was similar to Earth and had a similar moon, and then we could explain it away that it was actually an egg around this alien planet, then by all means that would have been a lot better and a lot smarter. But being that it's supposed to be our moon around our planet, no. That's about it.
Bill?
Well, this episode is one where I really just want to take aside the writer, show him a biology book, and then beat him over the bloody head with it. Because that's the only way to get the knowledge in deep enough to deal with this episode. It's...
Stupid.
I don't know if it was a case of trying to overachieve and write outside of his comfort zone, but he missed the mark and did not hit anything good. And I kind of do not understand why I've read articles about it possibly being one of the best Doctor Who episodes of all time, because I
know!
They keep doing that with every worst episode of the season so far.
Saturday or Sunday night, I browsed the internet. I just did a search for Kill the Moon review, and I came up with 5 or 6 review articles on it, all of which were praising it as like the greatest Doctor Who episode ever, and I'm like, are you guys cracked? One guy even reviewed it, said, yes, this is now better than my now second favorite episode. Listen, I'm like, okay, I've lost any and all respect I would have ever had for you in the first place.
That was the Nerdist, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
I'm kind of wondering if
that,
maybe the reviews are being bought out.
Phil Sandifer's opinion was very much the same way, that Listen had blown his mind, and Kill the Moon shocked him as now being one of his favorite Doctor Who episodes of all time.
I'm like, no.
I'm kind of sitting here thinking to myself, now that you mentioned that the Nerdist reviewed it so positively, and they're supposed to be a big nerd podcast that's supposed to bring in like big names and stuff. BBC? I'm kind of wondering if maybe they're buying out the Nerdist reviews in order to get big name people to show up.
Wait, I thought The Nerdist was a show on BBC America.
Is it? I could have sworn it was some sort of
It was a
podcast thing attached to it
podcast.
too.
It's
Yeah.
run by the guy who used to be the roommate of Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
And he has had shows on BBC America, but they're not series; they're specials.
Yeah, they're specials. They're not actually series.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
He's the one that did the countdown to Deep Breath that we saw at the Clada, if you remember, Bill.
Ah.
Saw
Yeah.
but not heard.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering
Right.
if maybe they're giving high praise just so they can keep the big names coming in.
Well, yeah.
Maybe, but
I'm wondering
does-
if he's giving it high praise because BBC America is greasing his backside.
That too. And because he's giving it high praise, everyone else is copying him.
Yeah.
Because they don't
Sellout.
want to feel stupid.
anyway, now for Rand's final thoughts, so we don't
Okay.
end up going over time.
All right.
Mm.
Basically, poorly written, poorly edited, beautifully acted, pointless special effects. The point where the doctor said the egg, as much as I liked the expression on the doctor's face, my response was, "Oh, come on!" And then proceeded to keep doing that for the remainder of the episode. It's horribly written with leaps of illogic that would make a Vulcan weep. And it's just so poorly, the moral conundrum is there, that, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place. It just makes me want to cry. I think I'll end my statement there, and we'll go to scoring. Aaron.
Which we have 4 minutes for.
4 minutes. Okay. I'm going to give this. Gosh, I'm going to give it 1.5.
Matt.
Acting good, plot bad, special effects good but pointless because the writing bad. I'm leaning between 1.5 and 2. I have to say, in the long run, because of how poorly it was managed, yeah, I'll give it a 1.5.
Bill.
Well, prior to this discussion, I thought that I had minor enough complaints to go for a 2.5. After the discussion of just how sloppy the whole potentially political angle was handled and just some of the things that just made it worse, I'm going to lower that to a 2.
All right, and I'm going to make this a 1.5 by giving it a 1.
Oof.
I absolutely did not like this episode from the point he said it onward. It was absolutely pointless, and in the end, the decision didn't matter. It burns at me now. I haven't been this angry since Asylum of the Daleks.
I don't think you've been this angry since Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
And I gave that a 0.5. That shows you where this is rating on my scale.
It's getting close. It's edging towards that point.
So with a 1, a 2, and 2 1.5s, this becomes a 1.5.
This is
No math needed by Bill.
Yeah, this is a very bad episode. Most people should probably forget they even saw it. Outside of the acting.
So that's our score, 1.5 for Kill the Moon.
I think that puts it below our listen average.
Yes.
Yes, it does. It's
'Cause
making
Listen
it
was in the
new
twos.
low point of the season.
Yeah, so our low
next
point of the season so far is Kill the Moon, with Time Heist as still the highest.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And tune in next week, where Doctor Who goes, where Leiji Matsumoto has been going for 30 years, with Mummies on the Orient Express. In space.
Trains in space. Good night,
God,
everybody.
I've never seen such a thing.
See you next week.